Well, James Gunn's DC universe is off to a flying start. Well, in my opinion anyway. I've already done a video on Superman, but to summarise, I thought it was good. Now we've got Peacemaker Season 2 following it up. Now, James Gunn's Peacemaker Season 1 was probably one of the most surprising wins from the old DC slate. Took a character that was pretty much written off in Suicide Squad and turned him into a character that people actually care about. It was crude, violent, often pretty silly, but it also had a strange kind of heart that kept it grounded. Now Season 2 arrives under a new banner with Gunn officially at the helm of the DCU. And instead of scrapping everything and starting fresh, he's decided to carry Peacemaker across to his new universe. And I think that's a great choice. Would have been a real shame to lose Peacemaker because of the mistakes by other directors and filmmakers. Now if you watch my Superman review, you probably know how I feel about the DCEU.
Crap on top of crap on top of crap on top of crap.
But occasionally there would be a glimmer of hope, and that's what I saw Peacemaker as. Now for me, John Cena remains the highlight of the show, and that's coming from somebody that stopped watching wrestling pretty much because of John Cena. I never really liked the guy. When he first started acting, he was taking these flat action roles, like in The Marine or Playing with Fire, and I never really thought much of him. That all changed when his career took a sharp turn into comedy. There was a couple of films here and there where I enjoyed his performance, but it was Ricky Stenicki what really changed my mind. That's where he showed he had great timing, great self-awareness, and his willingness to be self-deprecating.
Grab that stick. Load the hammer spit. Lay it on your back. Now it's time to whack.
In fact, it was Ricky Stenicki which convinced me to go back and watch Peacemaker. When Peacemaker came out originally, I was interested, but I could just see the DCU was a sinking ship, and I thought, what's the point in wasting time on it? However, I'm glad I did. There's just something about John Cena's face. Whether he's being smug, broken, or utterly idiotic, it just seems to always land. It's not just his physical comedy as well, it seems like he's actually turned into quite a strong actor. Now obviously he gets compared to The Rock a lot, both coming out of the WWE, but I think Cena's the far stronger actor. Although The Rock has had a few comedy moments, he does seem to just get cast as the same untouchable tough guy all the time, whereas Cena's far more willing to look foolish. Not only does that make him funnier, it makes him feel more human as well. Now although John Cena is obviously the highlight, this doesn't mean the supporting cast isn't also brilliant, and they all seem to be back with the help of the multiverse.
I'm sorry, you're saying there's a multiverse?
Along with some new additions too. We've got David Denman as Keith, Peacemaker's brother, better known as Roy from The Office. We've also got Frank Grillo playing Rick Flag Sr., who we saw briefly in Superman. Judging by what we've seen so far, I wouldn't be surprised if the story focuses more on Peacemaker than it did in Season 1, but it's still probably a little bit too early to tell. So far the season definitely feels a bit more dark and emotional. You can feel a similar energy to Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, the balancing of silly characters with moments of real emotional insight. I just hope they don't lose sight of what made Season 1 great. It needs to remain crude and silly without becoming too gritty. It's a fine line to tread, but I think James Gunn knows what he's doing. Well, I hope he does. Whilst we're on the subject of the tone of the show, one thing that just didn't feel necessary was the orgy scene. I've seen some critics calling it a TV's first.
You serious?
I feel like these people haven't watched much TV. Lucifer and Spartacus spring straight to mind. Maybe they didn't have quite as much nudity, but I don't see why that really makes a difference. It just felt like a scene trying to be edgy for the sake of being edgy. The same effect could have been achieved by him just wallowing in his own pit of despair, taking a load of drugs. It gave me a similar vibe to The Boys, where being outrageous ends up taking priority over storytelling.
That's a damn shame.
Okay, now we've got to talk about the multiverse. So far it seems to be being handled well. It's easy to follow, directly tied to Peacemaker's story, and it hasn't become like homework, doesn't feel like a convoluted mess. Unlike some cinematic universes. Hey Marvel. The way it's looking so far, this could really add emotional weight to the show, with Chris getting to explore what his life might have been like if he hadn't have killed his brother. Which on the surface looks like a great life, but I'm sure as the show digs deeper we'll find out that this life has its own array of problems. Now obviously I've only seen the first episode, but the critics have watched the whole season in its entirety, and it's getting some seriously glowing reviews. Rotten Tomatoes critics have it currently sitting at 99%, which is quite incredible, whilst the audience score is sitting at 81%, but the audience is only going off of one episode. Now, even though there's quite a disparity between the two scores, they're both sitting quite high, so that's kind of promising. I'm not quite sure why they've got it at 99%. There's a few bits in the first episode that already drop it down a little bit further than that for me. The Justice Gang interview was one of these moments. The premise was funny, but the content wasn't great, which is going back to that being edgy for the sake of being edgy. But going forward with the season, I'm hoping Gunn can keep his focus tight. The show doesn't need to be swallowed up by endless cameos, multiverse gimmicks and all that jazz. The show was at its best when it was just following a group of misfits who were messy, awkward, they're all trying to do the right thing, but rarely do the right thing. I'm also hoping in the darker tone doesn't smother the comedy too much. I'd like to see some character growth, some emotional growth, but not at the expense of what made the show fun to begin with. I'm really hoping the show ends on a strong note, and that we can see this universe's world a bit more fleshed out, paving the way for more DC projects. I've always thought DC had the stronger characters, and the better stories, outside of maybe Spider-Man and X-Men. I just feel it's been mismanaged. Or the live action side of things anyway. I think if James Gunn can maintain this balance, of managing to keep things grounded while staying light-hearted in places, we might finally get a good live-action DC universe. And I think he's the man for the job. He did really well with Guardians of the Galaxy. They were a largely unknown group outside of, major comic book fans. And now they're fan favourites. Anyways, I think your ears have taken a sufficient bashing. I appreciate you for listening. If you can, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment letting me know what you think about the show yourself. And with any luck, I'll catch you on the next one.